The way college football should be. Realignment week, month continues here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. I provided this about 5 years ago with a Power 6 structure. Former American Conference Commissioner Mike Oresco would have been proud of me. He always dreamed of a Power 6, including the American Conference, but this is much better. Let's take it to a Power 7. From the standpoint of the fabric of the game, the regionality, the rivalries, and the competitive balance across the landscape of college football, I think you might be hard-pressed to complete a better system for college football and conference structure than this one here at the Voice of College Football. Please leave your comments down below. The Pac-12 is back. This conference has so much symmetry, it's just beautiful. USC, UCLA, Arizona, Arizona State, Stanford, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, Washington State. That's the Pac-10, of course. Then we've got not just two other teams like Colorado and Utah. No, we are staying on the Pacific Coast for Fresno State and San Diego State. That comprises the Pac-12. Now on to the Big Ten, where we've got Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Indiana, Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Those 10 teams constituted the Big Ten for about 4 decades strong before the addition of Penn State. Penn State, you're out. We make the Big Ten 12 strong with Notre Dame and Cincinnati. The old Southwest Conference is back, and of course it's based in Texas with Texas, Houston, Texas Tech, Baylor, SMU, TCU, and Texas A&M, along with Arkansas. But we need 3 more schools to comprise the conference. Where do we go? Let's go to the American Conference for Texas San Antonio, Tulane, and Memphis. How about that final spot? What are we going to do? So instead of just grabbing a program that is currently the best of some marginal group of 5 programs, we are going to a case study. We are going to research the program, its TV influence, its market size, its brand quality, its prestige, its football history, its traditions, its football on the field right now, its facilities. Also, we would look at attendance, and we would look at these candidates for the final spot for the Southwest Conference. Rice, North Texas, Tulsa, Wyoming, Utah State, and Nevada for that final spot in the new Southwest Conference. The Big 12 is back, and it's better than ever with the core of the Big 8 that then became the Big 12 with some much-needed additions. Here we go. We've got Oklahoma and Nebraska joined together again. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Kansas State, Mizzou, Colorado. And then, of course, you've got Utah, which has formed a bit of a rivalry with Colorado, but it's more important to get Utah and BYU back together as they are currently in the Big 12. Add on the 2 best programs typically in the Mountain West Conference, Boise State and Air Force. ACC, you should be showing your undying gratitude here to the Voice of College Football because you are not extinct. We are preserving the ACC and even giving it a bit of a twist. The very familiar lineup of Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina State, Wake, Duke, Virginia Tech, all those rivalries intact, along with South Carolina coming in from the SEC. You younger fans may think that's a bit odd. South Carolina not in the SEC. Well, they've only been a member of that conference since 1992. They've accomplished virtually nothing. They did once belong in the ACC. And they're, of course, arch rival of Clemson. And now for that final spot, we go back to our formula to make the best selection out of Coastal Carolina, App State, Troy, Marshall, and James Madison for the final spot in the ACC. The Big East was always the very worst, by far, of the BCS conferences. We are going to do something about that, and in the meantime, we are going to bring together some old rivals from that part of the country that should be playing football consistently. It starts with Penn State in from the Big Ten, back to play Big East-style football against Pitt, UConn, Army and Navy, Louisville, West Virginia, Maryland, Rutgers, Cincinnati, BC, and Syracuse. Look up the rivalries between all these schools and they are significant going back pre-1990, pre-actual Big East Conference, when many of these schools were independents, and then, of course, they started to join conferences across the country. But that's our Big East, headlined by Penn State. Now to what has been the best conference in college football for the past 15 or 20 years, which was a 10-team conference throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s. Then Arkansas, South Carolina joined, and later Texas A&M and Mizzou, Oklahoma, Texas. But we've seen all those teams elsewhere. So how do we get the SEC from 10 to 12? Here we go. Of course, Bama, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Vandy, Florida as well. All those great rivalries stay intact. But let's help out the state of Florida with UCF and South Florida, the Bulls building a new stadium. And we have seen in the past that they are possibly capable of playing with the big boys, and we give them the ultimate test in joining the SEC. Our scheduling system is simple, but it's solid and effective. It starts with 9 conference games for every major conference. Included in those 9 conference games, we're going to leave it up to each conference to determine protected rivalries, games that have to be played each and every season. So otherwise, since you've got 12 teams in each conference, you've got 11 possible opponents. You're playing 9 of them, so there's only 2 teams in each conference that you are not playing. Unlike the current Big Ten, going into 2024 with 18 teams, you're playing 9 conference games. Therefore, you are missing 8 other teams. That leaves us with 3 non-conference games, but no longer will they be scheduled haphazardly by the schools themselves and their own self-interest and haphazardly scheduling dates 10, 15 years in advance to serve their own interests and create their own agendas. No, we are going to a computer scheduling formula. Like the NFL, it is going to be a formula. However, unlike the NFL, it is not going to be created to produce contrived parity. Like the NFL weights down the best teams and lifts up the worst teams from the previous season based on scheduling imbalance, this is going to be a formula to create scheduling balance. Everybody is going to play 3 non-conference games within this 84-team structure that is going to be based on the records from the previous season to create scheduling balance and fairness to the non-conference schedule. On to the playoffs. We've got 7 conference champions. That math doesn't work too well. So let's add a wild card for an 8-team playoff. Nice and tight with 8 teams, 7 conference champions plus a wild card. How do you determine the wild card? Well, you go with best record. That's the first criteria. There is almost certainly going to be a tie. Therefore, you go head-to-head if there is a tie and games played between those 2 teams, which is fairly unlikely, but still could happen, and we've seen it a number of times through our playoff models that we have taken the current 12-team through over the past 10 seasons. Then our next tiebreaker would be strength of record. You are measuring the dominance of the team versus its schedule difficulty, but also the dominance played against those opponents to determine your wild card. So in 2023, your conference champions would be as such: Washington in the Pac-12, Michigan in the Big Ten, the Southwest Conference champion Texas in the Big 12, Oklahoma State, Florida State in the ACC, Penn State in the Big East, and Bama in the SEC with your wild card as the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, if we project to 2024 and the favorites upcoming this fall, Oregon would win the Pac-12, Ohio State the Big Ten, the Southwest Conference champion still Texas, Utah in the Big 12, Florida State probably in the ACC, possibly Miami. In the Big East, Penn State again. And then in the SEC, you would have Georgia, with the wild card probably being the likes of, could be Bama, could be Michigan, could be all sorts of teams across the country, of course, as that wild card, which of course goes down to our tiebreaker formula. So I got to tell you, folks, I love the final edition here at the Voice of College Football of our conference realignment. 7 strong in the Power 7. 12 times 7 is 84 teams survive and play big-time college football. Is this going to happen? Of course not. It's not going to happen. That's not the meaning of the exercise here. This is to give you my version of what would be the best for college football and the best for the fans and the best for the fabric, originality of the sport, the unique qualities of the regions, and to protect rivalries. I'm not so crazy about the playoffs. It's decent with 8 teams. Of course, we're not going to go backwards there as well in regards to fantasy versus reality. Would love to hear your feedback on my structure of college football going forward, what it should look like, and your thoughts are always appreciated down below. Please like the video and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.